News Central now begins this hour in Nigeria, where the Nigeria Labour Congress has called on President Bola Tinubu to dialogue with leaders of an upcoming nationwide protest that aims to address the severe hardships faced by citizens. In a statement by NLC President Joe Ajaero, the union highlighted the urgency of the situation, with inflation soaring to 34.19% and food and electricity prices also skyrocketing. Ajaero emphasized the necessity for the president to engage with the protesters and address their grievances. He also condemned the dismissal of Nigerians suffering as merely politically motivated dissent, saying citizens demand a government that listens and also empathizes. As the date for the protest approaches, the NLC's call underscores the need for dialogue and responsive leadership. In the related development, but this time in East Africa, police in Uganda are on high alert following a planned protest by the youths. On Monday, ahead of the planned protest, the police raided the main opposition headquarters on the eve of an anti-government demonstration. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni warned on Saturday that organizers of the planned march to parliament were playing with fire. Young Ugandans have been mobilizing support online for the march to demand an end to what they say are high levels of corruption and bad governance. They have partly been inspired by their counterparts in neighboring Kenya, whose recent mass protests forced their president to axe plans to increase taxes. To discuss this, we're joined this morning here on News Now by Kato Tumusiime, a human rights lawyer and advocate. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much for hosting me today.
All right, great. Kato, tell me very quickly, what's the mood like there in Uganda? Any sight and sign of protesters on the streets?
Yeah, the mood is very intensifying in this city, Kampala, right now as we speak, because of the presence of the security organs, including the military itself. If you take a look at the videos and how the security agencies are deployed on the major streets of Kampala, you may think that Uganda is actually at a war. But this is a war against corruption. This is a war against the political leaders who misuse the government resources, who misuse the government offices in their own benefit. So far, since morning, we have received news about the arrest of, I think, so far 10 activists that have been arrested in the city center, including one that happened in downtown Kampala, and the other one that happened at the city square in Kampala here. And we expect the number of arrests to be made today because the people are determined to fight against this corruption, to fight against this impunity, to fight against the greedy members of parliament. And in this, they are exercising their right and freedom to demonstrate peacefully. These are people who are only saying, answer our questions about the corruption in our parliament, about the corruption in the government offices, and we need accountability on how much is being spent on that house that we call parliament, that is full of people who are supposed to be honorables but are dishonorables in this nature. The fight is not headed by any single party, maybe call it a political party, but it is a people-centered action. The people are rising to fight for their own rights, to demand for accountability in accordance with their duties under Article 17 of the 1995 Constitution here in Uganda, that gives us the power to rise and help the government in fighting for corruption, in fact, fighting for misuse of public offices, and in ending that kind of inconsiderate mistreatment and misuse of our own funds as a country, as a taxpayers. At the end of it all, it is us, the common Ugandans, that face the wrath of all this kind of misuse that happened in our parliament. We expect the number of protests to continue, and by the close of the day today, we may have big numbers of the people being arrested, not even the demonstrators themselves, but some people, we believe that some people may be picked up from their offices, some people may be picked up from their homes for being taken to be threats in the mobilization of this kind of campaign.
All right. I mean, yesterday there were raids at the opposition headquarters. We did hear that. What can you tell us about that raid?
It happened at the headquarters of the National Unity Platform, the leading opposition political party here in Uganda, and a number of arrests were made. Very many people, around 10 people were arrested. Surprising enough, these people were arraigned before court at 6:30 p.m. in the evening, even after the close of business of court sessions. But the magistrate had the audacity and, the energy to have this file appear before him, and these people take plea. We almost left court at around 7 p.m., something unprecedented in this country. I think we are going back in the bad days where we used not to respect the official time of courts, where we used to see the court systems and the judicial officers being used by the politicians in their own legal battles. These people were charged with offenses that related to unlawful assembly. The police claims that the people had and were organizing an unlawful assembly. Surprisingly, these people were remanded to police, were remanded to prison in Ruzira up to the 25th day of July. Most probably, in our thinking, we believe that there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of pressure that was amounting following the action that was planned to happen today, this morning on the 23rd. So these people were arraigned before court late in the evening, remanded. However much we tried to make their bail application, I was personally handling that case, but the application couldn't be entertained on the reasons that the magistrate thought that his ruling would be given on a later date, which is 25th. And those are the numbers that we were able to capture that were arrested. Right. The other one of the honorable MPs that is a youth wing of the National Unity Platform was only slapped with charges that related to Traffic and Road Safety Act. And he was also remanded over the same charges, and he will be back in court on the 25th, including the other 8 people. In the people that were arrested, we have a number of 3 MPs that represent the National Unity Platform in the Parliament of Uganda. They are also against the corruption and misuse of office that happen in their parliament, even if they may be affected in one way or the other, but they were also supporting the people to come and show their discontention against the misuse and the corruption that is taking place in that house.
All right. I mean, you've talked about the Ugandans having their freedom to express their rights as well. And we did also see a tweet there, of course, being pushed by Bobby Wine there, and you talked about his support. Any ideas if he may be placed under house arrest once again, just like we saw in previous years back, especially looking at the fact that he is a heavy supporter of these protests?
Personally, I have not had or seen any communication in that regard, but it is always the practice that happens here in Uganda, even when he's not the leader of the biggest political party, but there is suspicion from the police and the other military organizations that this person may have an impact in mobilization and mobilizing these people to come and storm the streets of Kampala. That's where we normally see these people coming up and surrounding their homes. And in that regard, we expect that the same could have happened today, but I cannot authoritatively say that this has happened.
All right,
the Constitutional Republic of Uganda.
Mr. Tumusiime, I think we did get that point. You're not certain whether it will happen, but thank you so much for joining us here on News Now. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Let's come back to Nigeria now. The government has stepped in to mediate the conflict between Aliko Dangote and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Dangote has encountered significant obstacles in importing crude oil for his Lagos refinery amid allegations of interference by a bloc in Kabul. The NMDPRA maintains that the refinery has not yet been licensed and remains in the pre-commissioning stage. NMDPRA CEO Farouk Ahmed also alleged that Dangote's diesel product is substandard, a claim which Dangote has vehemently denied. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Heineken Lokbobiri convened a high-level meeting with Dangote, Farouk Ahmed and other key stakeholders to address and resolve these issues. The meeting aimed to find a lasting solution and emphasize the importance of cooperation for the success of Nigeria's oil and gas sector. Meanwhile, Nigeria's House of Representatives has pledged to resolve the dispute bordering on the inability of the federal government to supply crude oil to local, private and modular refineries, thereby stalling their operations and frustrating their ability to produce petrol. Now, this was made known by the chairperson of the House of Representatives Joint Committee investigating the allegations by operators of local refineries, as he urged all parties to the dispute to await a resolution by the House. A correspondent Idong Joseph reports.
The inaugural sitting of the House of Representatives Joint Committee investigating challenges faced by Nigeria's midstream and downstream petroleum sector, importation of substandard products, as well as allegations of product unavailability to domestic refineries.
Our investigation will proceed in phases, beginning with the investigation of the allegation of alleged production and importation of substandard petroleum products and the non-availability of crude oil to domestic refineries.
The unique opportunity before us allows both the midstream and the downstream committees to work collaboratively to tackle the pressing issues within our petroleum industry.
Following complaints by local refiners like the Dangote refinery, alleging that they are unable to buy Nigerian crude, and counter-allegations that products of some companies are substandard, the committee ordered the suspension of all disagreements.
The Joint Committee resolved that both parties in the raging argument, Dangote Refinery, other refining companies, NNDPRA, marketers, and relevant stakeholders should henceforth cease further allegations and counter-allegations pending the conclusion and outcome of the investigation.
The Deputy Speaker of the House, on his part, charged the members of the investigative committee on transparency and fairness to all parties and to be professional in delivering its mandates. He also urged them to consider the interests of the people in their investigation and to find lasting solutions to the challenges confronting the oil and gas sector.
That you stand on the part of the people rather than the part of any other interest. Let the center of this investigation be on the people, and all about the people of Nigerians who are suffering.
The committee assures that it will undertake detailed investigations of all local refineries, marketers and importers' facilities, regulatory agencies, state-owned companies, and other players in the sector in order to ensure a thorough and transparent investigation. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Well, to discuss this, we are joined by Surajo Yewale, FCA Director, Fortress Consulting. Good morning and thank you so much for joining us here on News Now.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Not bad at all. Thanks for being here. Well, just a few hours ago, we did have the Emir of Kano, the 16th Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, alleging that the cabals in the NNPC would not allow for subsidy to actually thrive, the removal of subsidy. And here again, we did see the conflict between Dangote and the NMDPRA boss. Considering this impasse, these accusations of blocking cabals, accusations of disputes in the refinery, what challenges do you see arising in order to resolve this problem?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And Emir Sanusi, a friend and mentor, is someone I respect so much, and his views, I'm quite familiar with being a mentee to him. So I agree with him that Kaba is, we cannot rule out the place of Kaba in all of this because the oil and gas industry in Nigeria is very critical, and a lot of people profit from it, and systems that fetch easy money for people is not going to be let go like that. So I agree to some extent that we cannot rule that out as one of the things that are playing out at this time. But at the same time, I also think that we need to take seriously the allegations by the regulator. The regulator knows more than all of us. They see the numbers, they see the products, they see what we don't see. So I don't think we can exactly rely on the on the fact that this is not exactly this is work of Kaba, this is the work of people. Then we dismiss the serious allegations made by the regulator, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, against Dangote refinery. So I believe that we need to probably just sit back, look at all the situations, and you know what, are there lessons for both parties? So I believe that I don't think any Kaba is big enough to hold everybody to ransom. I mean, the subsidy regime has always been something that is very, very naughty. It's something that a lot of people profit from. Over a number of times, the government have said, okay, we have stopped subsidy. They still come back, quote it in different names, and we will start something at some point on that recovery and all of these, fancy names for it. So I believe that the Kaba is very strong. I believe that, but at the same time, I believe that the allegations are made by the regulator against the major investor in the industry should also be taken quite seriously for us to get a landing on this matter.
All right, we've seen the government involved. I mean, with the government's involvement, how can they achieve a resolution between Dangote and his refinery, and most importantly, his concerns about import barriers while meeting the NMDPRA's regulatory standards? Take, for instance, for licensing and product quality. We did hear that the NMDPRA boss say that his products are not yet refined, they're substandard. How can this meeting help, and how can this put a balance to this particular situation?
Okay, first and foremost, I also agree that the statement by the regulator, the chief of Nigeria's petroleum, downstream oil and gas industry, Farouk Ahmed, that comment was, lacked some form of decorum coming from a regulator. But at the same time, you have to look at it that, okay, these are issues that can be solved. These are issues that can be solved through engagement without having to get to the public, so that we don't have a situation in which the investors get, begin to run into panic, between to say, okay, it's not a comment by any regulator is enough to destroy an industry. So I believe that statement is not exactly what we expect from someone that oversees such an important.
Okay. All right. If you're still there, I also would like to ask you how much you think the cost of production of fuel will be, especially at the Dangote refinery, looking at the fact that Dangote is looking at importing crude oil from distant countries like Angola and also Libya.
Okay. So there are two components of the final result, of the final prices of a product. The PMS, the AGO, the DPK, the HHK, and the aviation fuel, and all of those, jet fuel. There are two components of it. You have the feedstock, the cost of the feedstock, that's the crude itself, the refining costs, okay, the transport costs, and all of those things. Now, Dangote himself, the Dangote refinery itself, is actually accusing the local suppliers of crude oil as selling way above the, what they expected. So if Dangote could get it at lower price in other jurisdictions like Angola, like Libya, and the cost of transporting to Nigeria still keeps it lower than if they had bought it from Nigeria. I don't think this will have any significant. I don't think the price increase will be significant. When we compare to if they had gotten it locally. But ultimately, the preference that we should get it locally, because it creates job for people, it creates the transporters, the movement, the shipment, all of those things that are kept in-house. But if Dangote could get it, Dangote is saying that getting it in Nigeria is even more expensive than getting it abroad. So if you get it at a lower cost abroad, and the cost of bringing it to Nigeria still makes it cheaper than what they would have paid if they got it locally from Nigeria. I don't think there's any problem in this. I don't think this will have any significant impact on the pricing locally.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ajaero, for joining us here on News Now.
You're welcome. All
right. You're still watching News Now here on News Central Television. We'll go for a break. When we come back, we do have more stories. Stay with us. You're watching News Now on News Central. Let's go straight to security matters. In a significant development in the fight against terrorism, the Nigerian Army has handed over another rescued Chibok schoolgirl, Ihi Abdul, with her 2 children and 330 women and children who were rescued from the dens of Boko Haram terrorists to Borno State government. Theater Commander, Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Hadin Kai, Major General Waidi Shuaibu handed over the victims of insurgency rescued during various operations in the Sambisa forest to Borno government at the Maimalari military cantonment. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the story.
A long-awaited news for the families of the rescued Chibok schoolgirl, as well as the 330 women and children. Borno State government has welcomed with gratitude the handover of the rescued victims by the Nigerian army.
The conduct of military operations across the theater is key to achieving the mandate of Operation Hardenkai, which is to restore normalcy in the northeast region in order for socio-economic activities to thrive. Today, we are witnessing two events, namely the handover of the Chibok girl and the handover of other women and children rescued during the course of our military operations to the officials of the Borno State government for further management. The plight of the remaining Chibok girls in captivity continue to capture national headlines, and here in the theater, it has necessitated the conduct of several military operations deep into enemy enclaves with the sole aim of facilitating their rescue. So far, a total of 19 Chibok girls have been rescued as a result of direct military operations.
Ihi Abdu, along with her two children, were rescued by troops of 21 Special Armored Brigade during an offensive operations conducted within Sambisa Forest. She is 27 years old, Kubur Kibaku by tribe and Muslim by faith. She hails from Kubur Mbula village in Chibok local government area of Borno State. She is at serial 67 on the list of abducted Chibok school girls published by the federal government of Nigeria in 2014.
The military operations continue as the army has pledged to explore avenues deep into all enclaves to rescue remaining persons.
For the survivors of the conflict, we are taking them to Bolokutu Intake Care Center, where we are going to provide them with services like the mental health and psychosocial support, family tracing and verification for the unaccompanied and the separated children, educational services also for the children. We prepare them before we reunite them with their families.
The healing process begins as the government pushes for rehabilitation and subsequent reunion of the rescued persons with their families after years of abduction. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Luck ran out of some men of the underworld on Sunday when they got caught while allegedly trying to steal from a welding workshop in Umuahia, the Abia State capital. The suspects were said to have been responsible for the many crime cases recorded in the neighborhood recently. News Central's Chinwe Ugele reports.
Nearly everyone had a complaint about what he or she had lost recently, either in their homes or shops. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is, the residents and shop owners in this neighborhood in Ward 3 Umuahia have fallen victims of men of the underworld, losing household items, generators, car batteries, and even equipment used in workshops.
I am doing automobile electrician. The whole battery, about 21 batteries in pieces, both heavy duty, 100 amps, 150 amps, 75 amps, and 65 amps. They carry all of them. They had to climb to my building, a story building, and take it away. The sumo was in my balcony. They climbed up. How they managed to climb up is what I cannot explain. They took it away. And not just once, they have robbed my building several times, both the people that are living downstairs.
One of the crime suspects next is Waterloo, after a welder whose workshop was constantly robbed began keeping vigil in turns with his son in the workshop to protect his materials.
They confess because we got one red-handed earlier this morning, around 3 o'clock. They called me that someone is at my father's shop. So they broke into my father's shop and started crying his working materials. They brought us to the buyers and one of the buyers escaped.
The arrest led to the arrest of the second suspect and discovery of a warehouse where they allegedly kept all their stolen items from where they are sold off to ready buyers. The security team sealed the warehouse since its owner is yet to be identified after parts of what looked like a mill was found in it, while a van seen adjacent to the warehouse, suspected to have been on a mission, was stopped from driving out. The residents later handed over the suspects to a team of Operation Crush. The state government says some measures are being put in place to check the rising insecurity across the state.
Government is not sleeping. A lot of measures, intelligence gathering, a whole lot of things are happening, which are not actually for public consumption. But what we will always do at all times is to update the people if there are things that the public need to do.
Efforts to get the state police public relations officer to speak on the development field. In Omaha for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Let's head now to politics. The Edo chapter of the All Progressives Congress has urged the State House of Assembly to immediately commence impeachment proceedings on Governor Godwin Obaseki for allegedly threatening to burn down the country. A state chairman of the party, Jarrett Tenebe, said this in a statement in reaction to a video of the governor speaking on the shooting incident that led to the death of Inspector Ako Ono, the police orderly of Senator Monday Okwebolo last Thursday. This is even as he linked incessant deaths occasioned by alleged inter-court fights to state-sponsored extrajudicial killings. Tenebe described the viral video as a melodrama wherein Obaseki threatened to burn down Nigeria if the murderers of Inspectors Ako Ono at the Benin City Airport are not arrested by the police. Earlier, Honorable Andrew Nwante, Head External Communication and Deputy Director Publicity, Edo APC Campaign Council and former Commissioner for Information, Edo State, spoke to us on this development.
And party members, indirectly was giving them marching orders. And if you see the fuller clip, you will discover that he was telling them that we are ready for them. We will deal with them. Remember some time ago, the Deputy Director General in charge of media of their campaign council, Lou Martins, had made a similar threat that will beat up those leaving the APC, or rather leaving the PDP for the APC, and that will bring down their billboards. And we really saw what happened, how some persons were physically assaulted, and how the billboards of both the Labour Party candidates and some of the APC billboards were brought down. I think we must have that sense of political maturity, not from a person like the governor. He occupies a position of respect, of esteem, but I think he has brought that office to disrepute, and Edo people will not wait for him to leave that office come November 12th. And what will surprise you is that today the Court of Appeal dismissed an appeal by the PDP candidates. So I can tell you for free that there was also a dismissal of an appeal that the Deputy Governor filed. But because the Deputy Governor has crossed from the PDP to the APC, his own is really of no moment because it's no longer in the PDP. Now that he's in APC, naturally that case becomes...
Well, from Edo State, let's head to River State now, where the Martin Amewule-led State House of Assembly has frowned at the continued stay in office of the Caretaker Committee Chairman, despite the Supreme Court's judgment declaring them illegal and wants them arrested. The Apex Court had recently given judgment in a case between the Attorney General of the Federation and the Attorneys General of the 36 states, declaring Caretaker Committee Chairman illegal. At plenary on Monday, the leader of the House, Major Jack, informed the members of the certified true copy of the aforementioned Supreme Court judgment in his possession, which he laid before the Speaker. After voting, Amewule called on the police to arrest the Caretaker Committee Chairman wherever they were seen parading themselves.
Calling on the security agencies to the police to go after these people, to ask them to stop them from parading themselves as illegal Caretaker Committee members. And they should stop the paramount rulers, traditional rulers, chiefs, youth bodies, market people, women and men, should stop dealing with them because they are impostors. Then radio stations, TVs, print media and etc. should stop regarding them as Caretaker.
We should call on the Nigeria police to commence the immediate arrest of these impostors across the 23 local government areas of our dear states. Secondly, that we're going to call on all banks, government at all levels, residents of River States, all those doing business in River States, foreign embassies, all traditional institutions, even non-governmental organizations, everybody to disregard and immediately call the attention of law enforcement agencies whenever they see these impostors parading or moving on the streets in these states asking for money, disturbing our market women in the markets, or disturbing our people in the motor parks, or asking people to pay rates or levies to these individuals. They should immediately report to police or other law.
Let's go down to Jos, where Governor Caleb Mutfwang has inaugurated a 9-man technical committee to investigate the collapse of the 2-story building in Jos, the Plateau State capital, that took the lives of over 20 students of the Saints Academy. The building came down on July 10 when students were writing their last examination for the term, leaving tens of them injured. The governor further urged the committee to extend their probe into some other school buildings that may be in the same category to ensure that such disaster is nipped in the bud in the state. News Central's Chizoba Anyonwe was there and tells us more in this report.
Governor Mutfwang had timed this disaster as Black Friday in Jos when he visited the site of the collapse, as well as the victims in various hospitals where they were receiving treatment. For him, it was an avoidable incident, but for the inability of some public officials in considering the safety of lives of the residents.
Those who put up the building, we must also admit that there is a failure of governance. And so we need to learn from this and make sure that we put governance arrangements that will guarantee the integrity of physical infrastructure, because we have seen it's not just cholera that consumes lives, that buildings are equally dangerous. And if we don't do what we are supposed to do, then we put society at risk.
To avoid further disaster in the state, the governor extended the assignment of this committee to also ascertain the state of the remains of the Jos Terminus market, which got burnt many years ago.
We're going to expand the terms of reference of this committee because based on the intelligence report, the carcass of the Jos main market will collapse any moment. So we want this committee to also go in, look into the state of the carcass, and in fact go backward. How did we get the carcass to this position? Who were those who removed the structures? Where were they taken to? We need to look into that.
With the experience garnered from 33 building collapses in Lagos and 22 in Abuja in the year 2011, Chairman of the Technical Committee said his team will not disappoint the people of Plateau.
Our interest to do this, I want to assure you, we don't want to be at home with such things, but you are going to receive a precise and exercise report, and we thank you that you are giving us the extension.
At the end of the committee's assignment, it is expected that the collapse in Saints Academy will be the last of such in Plateau State. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyonwe.
And thanks for staying with us here on News Now. The news continues in West Africa, where a Sierra Leonean court has convicted 11 individuals of treason and other offences related to an attempted coup last November. Among those convicted is Amadou Koita Makalo, a former soldier and bodyguard to ex-President Ernest Bai Koroma. Makalo received a combined sentence of 182 years for charges including treason, murder, and shooting with intent to murder. The other 10 were also found guilty of treason and murder. The coup attempt occurred on November 26 when armed attackers stormed the military armory, 2 barracks, 2 prisons, and 2 police stations. In the ensuing clashes with security forces, 21 people were killed and hundreds of prisoners escaped. Authorities have identified the attackers as members of the armed forces. Let's stay in East Africa this time. At least 55 people have been killed in a landslide in a remote area of southern Ethiopia. The Gopher Zone Communications Affairs Department confirmed this in a statement quoting a local chief, Dagmawi Zerhun, who warned that the death toll could yet increase. The landslide, triggered by heavy rains, occurred on Monday in the mountainous region, claiming the lives of many women and children. Gopher Zone, located approximately 450 kilometers from the capital Addis Ababa and north of Maize National Park, has been severely affected by the short seasonal rains between April and early May, which have caused widespread flooding and mass displacement in the South Ethiopia regional state. And still in the east, Somali government officials and of course Al-Shabaab militants have each claimed to inflict heavy losses on others following recent raids by the Islamist group on military bases in southern Somalia. The raids occurred near the villages of Bolo Zaji and Habul, approximately 90 kilometers outside the port town of Kismayo, targeting 3 army bases where members of the Somali National were actually also affected. Well, still mentioning that story as well, Al-Shabaab claimed the attacks killed 71 and wounded many more. The group has been waging a years-long insurgency against the fragile central government. Still staying in the region, 3 Ugandan opposition politicians have been detained and remanded in prison on the eve of a banned anti-corruption march. Opposition leader Bobby Wine reported that heavily armed security forces were besieging his party headquarters. The action follows a warning from President Yoweri Museveni, who was ruled for nearly 4 decades, cautioning Ugandans against taking to the streets, saying they were playing with fire. The arrested legislators Francis Zaike, Charles Tabandeke and Hassan Kirumira, all members of the opposition National Unity Platform, are expected to appear in court on Thursday for their bail hearing. And on World Wrap, the announcement of President Joe Biden's decision not to contest the upcoming presidential election in the United States and the endorsement of his vice, Kamala Harris, has continued to send shockwaves around the world. Some experts in Nigeria say there are lessons to be learned for the nation's political elite as Nigeria continues to grow its democracy. Marvelous Bomanu reports.
The upcoming U.S. elections continues to present new controversies as the day nears by. The recent decision by the American President Joe Biden to discontinue his plans to run for election due to health concerns and his bold support for his vice, Kamala Harris, is one decision many think Nigerian politicians can learn from. Unlike Joe Biden, it is an uncommon practice in Nigeria for a president or a governor to support his deputy, as this usually becomes a reason for conflict.
We are still growing. Nigerians, Africans, we have not matured to that level. It is exceptional cases that governors ask to support their deputies. It has failed from the time of Obasanjo, from the time of Tinubu and Femi Pedo and the rest of them.
The phenomenon of governors not supporting their deputies to succeed them is rather a norm. It's a norm rather than an exception in Nigeria. Most governors will not support and have not supported their deputies. And the reason is yet to be understood by people like us. And that is not healthy. We've only had few instances in Kano where Kwakwanso supported Ganduje and maybe a couple of other places. If only a few deputy governors have succeeded in becoming governors.
Our governors feels like they are too powerful, and maybe Constitution give them some sort of, the immunity and some sort of powers that they will. And oftentimes, they wouldn't want someone who was their deputy to control such powers. They rather go and pick someone somewhere, a puppet, somebody they can control who doesn't really know much.
The current situation in Edo State between Governor Godwin Obaseki and his reinstated deputy, Philip Shaibu, is a case in hand. Some political experts believe that the trend of grooming successors to take over their states are strategies for governors to still maintain their stranglehold on the state's resources.
We run a system, a corrupt system, that the governor knows that he has the state purse in his hands. He can call the shot with INEC. He can call the shot with the security agencies to deliver whoever he wants to deliver. When you declare to run for local government chairman, you will see some forces that will come, even within the local government, tell you that, hey, you're not going, see who is going. I'm being honest, unfortunately. I mean at the local government level. When you develop your interest right now that you want to run for a council election in your local government, you see some forces that will come and call you and tell you that you're probably the talent of the people. You're probably popular in your local government. You're probably going to win the election. But there's some forces that will call you and say, hey, step down. This is who is going.
By this statement, it is indicative that there are forces that determine who wins an election in Nigeria, and they are likely to be power givers or king makers. But the question is, who are these power givers who have held Nigeria's development by its jugular? And is it not time to show the red flag to these power givers? In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomman.
Wonderful perspective there. Staying with the U.S. politics now, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has secured the required delegates to clinch the 2024 Democratic presidential nomination. This milestone follows President Joe Biden's withdrawal from the race and his endorsement of Harris on Sunday. Delegate counts confirmed that the 59-year-old Harris has surpassed the 1,976 delegates needed to win the party's nomination in the first round of voting. The Democratic Party has a total of 3,936 delegates, including former presidents, state and local party leaders, members of Congress and governors. However, only about half are eligible to vote in the first round. In a vote called by former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, California's delegates unanimously backed Harris on Monday evening, pushing her over the top and solidifying her position as the party's nominee. In the meantime, Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, has told his Virginia supporters to kick Kamala Harris out of the Oval Office. According to Vance, Vice President Harris was endorsed as a likely presidential candidate because elite Democrats got in a smoke-filled room and decided to throw Joe Biden overboard.
That we got to kick Kamala Harris out of the Oval Office. Don't give her a chance. Don't give her a chance to run away from the Biden record. The Biden record is the Kamala Harris record. And given what we know about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris probably did a lot more than Joe Biden does over the last 3.5 years. And if Kamala Harris is too blind or too corrupt to admit to the American people that Joe Biden should have never been in there, she's not fit to serve either. We got to get them both out of there.
Ahead of the 2024-2025 Nigeria Premier League football season, Bayelsa United has resumed training at the Samson Siasia Stadium in Yenagoa. The players resumed training on Monday morning under their technical crew after observing a few weeks of holiday. According to the update from the team's camp, they will observe a few days of training in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. And the team will embark on a pre-season and camping in Omoku River State for intensive closed-door training before the kickoff date of the season. The Prosperity Boys survived relegation on the final day of last season with a 0-2 away win against Bendel Insurance in Benin. Still staying in sports, former champions Plateau United, Kano Pillars, Niger Tornadoes and Nasarawa United will lead the crop of NPFL clubs that will be in Abuja from 11 to 18 August for the 4th edition of the Unity Pre-Season Tournament. Confirming this in Abuja, the tournament's mobilization coordinator, Kola Daniel, said all the participating teams have expressed readiness to take part in the tournament, which is the flagship of the Northern Conference. He said other teams, Casino United, Mighty Jets and EFCC, who are the defending champions, will be part of the tournament. Dr. Daniel, who is the media aide to the Minister of Sports, said few NLO clubs will be allowed to be part of the tournament to enable them to expose their players. The tournament is a 10-team tournament with 6 NPFL teams, 2 NNL teams and 2 NLO teams. And that's the news for this hour. Before we go, a quick look at some of the stories. Nigeria Labour Congress urges President Tinubu to engage leaders of planned protest. Nigerian government moves to resolve impasse between Dangote and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. And finally, we told you that scores of fighters have been killed in raids claimed by Al-Shabaab. Well, don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen, and do well to follow us on all socials. We are at News Central TV, and you can watch us live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on DSTV channel 422, StarTimes channel 274. We're on Aval TV as well, and streaming live on YouTube. I'm Joe Hanson. Thanks for watching.